also talk about not only, are we talking about the rise of Trump, but the rise of Bernie Sanders, this same phenomenon?
Yeah, you know, I think among a lot of voters, there was just a sense that the system had failed. And both in the Republican primary and in the general election 2016, there's a lot of talk about how Trump voters correlate to bigotry, to racism, sexism, and so on. They also correlate, one of the correlations is that Trump did particularly well in areas that had higher deaths of despair. And, you know, when your friends are dying around you and the system is not responding, then you are angry and you are desperate. And if you have been raised in a kind of a traditional conservative value, then if somebody is good at blaming immigrants or promising that manufacturing is going to revive, then you don't know whether it's true, but you may be willing to take a risk. And it's worth pointing out that these are not problems that Trump created or that one party created. These are problems created over 50 years by both parties. Both parties blew it on mass incarceration. Both parties blew it on the war on drugs. You know, obviously I'm much more aligned with the Obama administration than, say, with the Bush administration. But after the 08-09 economic crisis, it was striking that the United States intervened to help Wall Street, and 10 million people lost their homes, and they did not get rescued. So there is a lot of anger out there, and one of my frustrations is that Democrats, since Bobby Kennedy, have not been very good at speaking to white working class voters, some better than others and so on, but it's something, there is a inadvertent tendency to sometimes come across as condescending. And these days, there's such polarization that I think that risk is magnified. On the other hand, among a lot of white working class voters, you know, on the one hand, culturally, they're more aligned with Trump. I mean, many of them believe abortion is murder. They deeply care about Supreme Court judges and so on. Guns, as Sheryl mentioned. On the other hand, issues like raising the minimum wage poll incredibly well. Broader health care. I mean, we have some problems right now in the Democratic Party over Medicare for all, but the idea of universal access to health care is broadly popular. In places like Yamhill, bandwidth for all, modeled on rural electrification, is kind of a no-brainer. And so I think that there are, I think that if the right candidate spoke to these voters, then some would be torn and they would say, well, I don't like your position on abortion or on guns, but I do like your position on the minimum wage, on unions, on health care. And it would be possible to win some of those votes, and I hope that the Democratic Party does fight for every one of those votes.